Welcome to another special guest episode of the Aubone Tennis Online Coaching Podcast. This is your coach, JY, where I try to help high-performance tennis players and their parents have not only just a successful journey, but an enjoyable one as well. And hopefully today's podcast can bring some appreciation and perspective into what we think sometimes can be a very difficult and stressful journey. Maybe it's not so bad. Sam Jalloh, the author of How Tennis Saved My Life, discusses his story in what is just very difficult to believe. It's a story that we don't often hear enough about, but is still going on in the world today. He discusses how amazing it was that he even survived birth, playing tennis without shoes in a tournament, his toes bleeding, only getting to play one tournament a year because that's all they had in Sierra Leone, stringing rackets by hand, crossing a border, multiple borders at the age of 16 by himself, risking his life literally just to try to find better training to pursue his dream of hopefully becoming a better tennis player, a professional tennis player that has a better future. So if you can, get his book on Amazon. There's a lot that we don't go over in the podcast because we only have so much time, but the book is incredible. And I hope it brings the same healthy perspective to you that it did to me when I read the book. Now, some side notes. It looks like there's a good chance I will be at Eddie Herr this year. So that's going to be in a couple weeks. If you're down there, reach out to me. Would love to meet up. I will also be at 14's Orange Bowl in Miami. So that's another place. Reach out to me if you're going to be down there. Look forward to seeing you. But until then, I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. Well, Sam, man, thanks for doing this. First of all, we only met this summer, and so great that you gave me your book. Was able to spend just a little bit of time with you, and now we get to do this. So thank you so much for taking the time. You're on the road right now, but really thank you for taking the time to talk a little bit about your story.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, and I was glad that we met in Cincinnati this year. And I'm looking forward to share my story with you and your audience. And thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I have to thank Charles Allen who just connected with us. He's trying to start the Intense League here in Atlanta. So big shout out to him for introducing us, because if not, we wouldn't have met in the first place. And I have to say, as we get into it, I have to say thank you for writing your book and for sharing your story, because I try to tell this to my players as much as I can, but even I myself need the reminder from time to time that within one situation, there's always multiple truths. And it's the truth that you put your energy on and focus on that is really going to determine, how you feel about things. And ever since I got your book, it wasn't even that long ago, but there's been just some days where if I wanted to have a bad day, if I wanted to focus on something bad and feel bad and be negative, it probably would have been truthful, and somebody could have said, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I understand what you're going through is not easy." But then I go and I just read a page of your book. It's not showing up. Well, there we go. Read a page of your book. And I'm just like, man, I'm doing just fine. I'm doing okay. I can fix this. All right. I'll be just fine. If Sam can survive what he survived. So that's why I wanted to talk to you about, because I think for me, travel and learning from other people is the best thing that can really happen to a lot of us. I love school, I love education, but that is the best education, learning from others, learning what else is around the world. And because that can bring perspective to us that then provides a better outlook. And when we're positive and have good energy, we can then accomplish a lot. And so that's where I'm going to get to your story, where you were born in Sierra Leone, and really just being born and staying alive was like a win right there, right? Just walk us through. Parents had 11 kids. You were number 8, but not even a lot of them could make it through childbirth.
Yeah, so Sierra Leone back then when I was born was, things started changing. In fact, Sierra Leone was one of the best country prior to the time I was born, because we had the oldest education. And Sierra Leone is a very wealthy country by natural resources. We got gold, diamond, iron ore, bauxite. And if many people have watched Blood Diamond, which is Leonardo DiCaprio, it tells you about one man's story who somebody found a massive diamond and they tried to get this diamond, to England and to the US and stuff like that. So Sierra Leone was good, but unfortunately for myself and my family is that things started changing as the world started evolving and people start discovering a lot in Africa, especially country like Sierra Leone. So yes, my mom and dad, they never went to school, never had any education, and they could not read or write. Even today, I can't even send my mom a text message because that would be useless to her. But thanks to technology, I can speak to her on a video call. But as poor as my parents were, they had 3 to 4 jobs that they do every week. My mom used to work in a garden at 4 or 5 in the morning, and then by sunrise, she would walk 6 miles into the jungle to cut wood. And the way my mom used to do it, she will cut massive giant trees and cut them down, and then the logs, she will burn it into charcoal, and then the branches she will use as a firewood. And those wood can weigh anything between 20 and 30 kilos. So she'll put on her head and then walk a 6 mile and then sell in the local markets. And that's only just to try and make like less than $1 a day, not even $1, with all this hard work that my mom does, going to the jungle and stuff and to help my dad. And my dad, on the other hand, same thing, never had any education. But funny enough is that my dad was electrician and I don't know how he can read numbers and things when he can't even write his own name. But he was taught he was taught electricity, how to be an electrician by the missionaries from the U.S. that stays in Sierra Leone back then. So, but my dad, he was an electrician by day, he was a security by night, and he was a handyman who could fix anything. And combined, my parents' salary was barely $10 a month for what they were paying them for their normal job because labor was very, very cheap. So that's why they have to do so many different jobs. And also remember that the cost of living for family of let's say 2, 3 kids and a wife and a husband was over 200 US dollar. So if you're making less than $20 or $10 a month, I don't know how my parent did it, but one of the way we survived was through the neighborhood. But then, given the fact that they're really poor, they decide to have many children. I make a joke now because there was no television, so they kept themselves busy by having more children. And the other reason for that is because poor countries and poor people think by having many children, there'll be a possibility for one of those kids to be successful. So when you become successful, you become like the breadwinner of the family. As my friend said in South Africa, you become what is known as the black tax, meaning once you make it, you're going to pay for everybody else. So, so I said, little did I know that my parents and society and life was preparing me to be the black tax of my family. And then I was born in 1982 in a place called Tembe Town. And Tembe Town is one of the worst slum at that time in the capital city, where 99% of the people never been to school. There was no electricity, there was no running water, there was no road, there was no supermarket. There's nothing like Chipotle, McDonald's, KFC, whatever. We have none of that. Absolutely nothing. And for drinking water, we have to put buckets on our head and walk 3 miles somewhere to fetch water. And during the raining season, we only collect rainwater from when the waters are flowing down the gutter, whatever it is, just so that we can survive. And in Tembetan, I think at that time, one of the worst thing was we had a lot of cholera, dysentery, malaria, typhoid, because we're drinking just contaminated water and stuff like that. So children survival rates was the highest mortality rate in the whole world. Imagine there's over 200 countries and Sierra Leone had the highest mortality rates. And that also due to lack of hospital, medical facilities, trained midwives, and all this kind of stuff. And here was my mom just giving birth to children after children after children. Then I become the number 8 child, to my parents. But unfortunately, my mom had 3 boys before me, and they passed away. 2 of them died at birth, and one of them died at infancy. And again, that's due to the lack of medical facility. But then my parents, they had a traditional beliefs, which I'm sure you've read that on the book already, is that my parents believed that there's an evil spirit that was causing the death of their male child. And this is exactly how they think, because all my sisters were surviving, but then my brothers were dying. So they think that there is this evil spirit. So, and then when I was born, my parents decided, well, in order to keep me alive and away from this evil spirit, they have to pretend that I was a girl. So they end up giving me a girl's name, which is Pore. Pore is a name for a girl in order to convince this evil spirit. But I also say, it happened that one of my favorite country singer is Johnny Cash. And, he had a song called A Boy Named Sue. So I don't know what is the connection between culture and society, but I would say, like he said, he appreciated that his dad gave him that name because it makes him become a stronger boy. But then I'm thankful to my parents because I'm 42 years old now and I'm still alive, so I have not been found by these evil spirits. And that
It
was the
worked
start of
out.
my story.
Yeah. Well, and but it wasn't too long after. Okay, you survived birth, everything's great. At 6, you get adopted. You
Yeah.
know, so then you have to go to another family that it was not the most pleasant experience. Your dad was taking a chance on trying to give you a chance to have a better education, to give you a chance of success in the future, but it was not what a lot of people would think. I mean, it was actually a lot for you at the time. It was actually harder than being home.
Yeah, it was tough. So what happened was we live in a very old corrugated house, which is these are built by a sink. Like I said, we live in the slum, and I will send you a photo of the actual house I was born in. And this house, like I said, I love it because even though we were very poor in Time, it was the most magical place I ever lived. And we didn't have bed in the house. We had no chairs, no furniture, absolutely nothing. My parents had a little bit of grass mattress, which is a local made out of grass. It just looked like how Jesus Christ was born, in a stable. So that's exactly how we lived. And also with me and my siblings, because we never had bed, my parents found cardboards that they found in the dustbin, and that's what they put on the floor, and that's where we all slept at night. With rats coming into the house, scorpions, snakes coming into the house. We got mice and all this kind of stuff. And the funny thing is, I remember my mom used to say, if you feel something crawling over you or by your side, it's a snake. So pretend you're dead and don't move. So, and the reason why the snakes comes into the house, because at night when we go to sleep, the house become a hunting ground because the mice are coming out to look for food, and then the snakes are coming in to find the mice. So we'll be sleeping, and then all of a sudden you hear this squeaky noise because they grab one of the mice and things like that. But we lived and survived. And then because my dad was struggling financially and he wanted the best for me, wanted me to have an education, my dad always talk about how he wants me to be a doctor, and that's about it because he knows that being a doctor, you will make money, but also you will help people. And then the man who owned the whole corrugated house was a 65 years old man who owned the corrugated house who came to adopt me, and his mom was 86 years old. So he approached my dad because he wanted to adopt a child, and he said to my dad, Mr. Jalloh, if I can adopt your son, I will make your house rent 3 times cheaper. And my dad, without even thinking about it, he just said, yeah, you can have him. So here I was as a 6 years old, and I got adopted into this family. And I remember so clearly the day this old man came to pick me up. I had no much clothes. I had a plastic bag, with me. My mom has put few bits in. I have no flip-flop, no shoes. Absolutely. I walked everywhere barefoot. And so, yeah, so we walked, and he grabbed hold of my hand. And as we walked through up the hills, and I could see my beautiful Timber town just getting further and further away from me. And then I got adopted, into this family, which was really, really one of the toughest challenges I ever faced as a child. Because when I went, obviously I was named Pore, so I become Pore Jalloh. And as soon as we get to the house, the old man said, so you're going to meet my mom, and she's 86. She's going to be your new grandma. She's going to look after you. And then grandma took like, I don't know, 3 minutes just to open the door. She was so old. And when she actually appears on the door and she opened, the first thing she said, so what's your name? And I said, Pore. And then immediately she said to me, well, from today, your name is Samuel, so you're not Pore anymore. And, Samuel is in the Bible. He doesn't do this. He doesn't steal. He doesn't lie. He doesn't swear. So I'm expecting you to behave really well. And, but then I realized that these people, their own way of discipline was to use the whip. So they have a thing in the Bible which they quite use, I think in the wrong way. That's the way they use it. It says, spare not the rod and spoil the child. So as a little boy, obviously you're growing up, I love football, I mean soccer, and I love to meet with other friends. But in this family, I was restricted not to meet with anyone, not to go anyone out to anyone. And I got so nervous the first night I was there, and I actually wee-weed my bed. Well, say bed, I slept on the floor again on a cardboard. And the grandma wake up in the morning and asked me, said the place smelled a little bit weird, and I denied it because I was so scared of this woman. And I got the first whooping of my life. I mean, I'm not just talking light whoop. They whoop you from your head to toes. And I keep having that over and over and over. And then after 3 years of this kind of brutality and punishment, and I decided, well, you know what? If I don't get away from these people, I'm going to lose my life and I'm going to lose my head. So as a 9-year-old, I decided I've had enough. So that's when I run away and I became homeless. And then I was living from place to place, family members, friends, and all this kind of stuff.
It's quite the different childhood that a lot of these tennis families grow up in, that forget beatings, they're trying to figure out which sport to play, right? They're playing baseball, soccer, tennis, they're doing everything. And it's like, oh, well, when do we choose? When do we specialize? We don't want to burn them out. We don't want them to play too much tennis or too much soccer, right? That was not your problem growing up. You still hadn't even, getting to the age of 9, 10, you still hadn't played tennis yet, right? I mean, so, so you finally ran away, but let's start to get a little bit to the tennis part now. At what point did you find tennis, and how did you get into tennis from there?
Well, it was the same time when when I run away, I'm on the street, then, my sister picked me up. My mom and dad separated after so many years of being together. And, I was moving, stay on the street for a little bit, moved to the aunties, my uncle who passed away, and then I moved to my sister, left my sister, and then finally, when my mom moved to Hill Station, I moved in with my mom. So next to the house, just literally 10 yards away from the house where my mom lived, with her new partner, lies 3 tennis courts that were built in 1904. So it's a club called Titi Club Talk of the Town. So, but prior to me moving to my mom at 9, when my mom used to go to the jungle when I was very young before I got adopted, we used to walk past the tennis court all the way to the mountain. And then on the way down, my mom used to take a break on the side of the tennis court where she put her wood or charcoal down, get some drink, get some refreshments. And I would wander into the fence because all I could hear is this beautiful sound of the tennis ball all the time. And then I would put my face on the fence, but all I could see was these are just white people playing tennis. So in my head, I just thought that tennis was played only by rich white people. And then a few years later, when I moved in with my mom, so here I am on the same very tennis court that I was passing through with my mom all the time. But I think what really got me so much into tennis, at that point when I moved to my mom, I met a friend called Alimami. So Alimami became my guiding angel, I call him, my best friend. He was almost 2 years older than me. He was a tennis player, slim like me, tall. Till this day, people in Sierra Leone actually thought me and Alimami were twin brothers because we go to school together, we play tennis together. Very rarely do you see me without him or him without me. We were like this, so we learn to compete with each other. But there is a popular sport in Sierra Leone called hand tennis. So I will send you some photos and videos of this. So we actually played bare hand. And still this day, I even play hand tennis when I go home. I play a lot with the kids. And this was like a national sport back then. And I become very good at hand tennis. So my hand-eye coordination was really good because I could play with my bare hand. And then one day, one of the kids said, Sam, the kids who have gone to play tennis in Togo, Nigeria, and Benin and Ghana, they're coming back tomorrow. And I go like, wow, the kids go to play international competition. They say, so how old are these kids? Oh, they are 12, 14. They go to play the under 12 and under 14 ITF juniors. And then he said, they're giving them a lot of money as well. They give them 250 US dollar. I tell you what, this was like me. Imagine my parents made, let me say, barely $10 a month. And if I can have 250 US dollar, that's like winning the biggest lottery in my entire life. And then that's when I decided, like, wow, 250 US dollar, that will feed my family for half a year. I will pay my school fee. I will help my mom and all this kind of thing. And then he said, they give them national tracksuit shoes, rackets. I can tell you, John, this was the reason for me to play tennis. I had no reason not to do whatever it takes to play tennis. And since that day, the dream and my ambition to be a tennis player was born. And I started doing tennis to the point where my mom thought something was mentally wrong with me because I would not stop. I was playing hand tennis. We didn't have money for racket. We didn't have money for shoes or nothing. So we create a piece of plywood, which is a boat bat. And so we use that to play. It's like a paddle bat, but made with wood. And so that's what we play with. And boy, oh boy, did I pick my hand-eye coordination really quick. Yeah.
Well, and then but you didn't play with shoes either. You played barefoot.
Yes, I played barefoot because I never had shoes. And the shoes thing become like a funny, dramatic thing for me. And I'm going to say as well, obviously, me and Alimami, we play a lot. And one day I was playing both bat tennis with Alimami. So the scoring system is like a super tiebreak. So we play to 10 or 11. And and then this Lebanese guy, Sierra Leonean Lebanese, they will come after work. Some American people, British people, they will come to play the usual tennis after 4 o'clock when they finish work. And so after school, me and Alimami play best of 5 set. But we played on a concrete floor, on a concrete court, but there's no paint on it. And the thing is like a sandpaper. And I remember this particular, they were playing best of 5 sets, so it was 2 set all. And this Lebanese guy came and he sat down and he's looking at us. And I could see from his face, this guy was so amazed by what was happening between me and Alimami. We're just killing each other, running left and right. It was close to 40-degree heat. And I had 3 of my toes, actually, my nails hanging off. So I got 3 nails hanging off. There was blood all over the place. But I tell you, I couldn't give a monkey, even if my toe would have fallen off, that would not bother me. All I wanted to do was to beat Alimami so badly so that I can prove to everybody that, I'm getting better at the boat bat or even tennis. And eventually I end up beating him 3-2. And I remember Mr. Raymond Sion, this Lebanese guy is called, and he said to me, boy, if somebody could just put a racket in your hand, you'll be a national champion. So every time he comes to play, and he will give me one of his rackets, and then I'll hit with him. But as soon as I pick up racket, everything was there because I'm playing hand tennis, both bat tennis, and so that's how my tennis journey continued. And then to get into the national team, you have to play the nationals, and the nationals happen once a year. It's not like America where you have 400 tournaments a year, for kids. God knows how many tournaments are there in America. And we only have one tournament a year. That's the national. So that's what I'm saying is we got one national a year. There are a few times where we've had two pending if we have sponsorship or somebody who can come in and help. So the finalists in the under 12, 14, 16, 18 boys and girls will automatically qualify to represent Sierra Leone in that category. So, and in 1995, I was 13 years old when I played my first ever nationals, and I found myself in the quarterfinals. And it was really hot because March and April, the weather goes to 40, 42 degrees Celsius. So that's pretty hot on a concrete floor. And here I was playing barefoot in my national. And then one of the sponsors, there was a company called Sierra Leone. They mined certain resources in Sierra Leone. And then there was Evian Water. So this American guy came from the Sierra Leone company, to observe the tournament. So he saw me playing without shoes, best of three sets in 40-degree plus Celsius. And so he asked the coach, why is that kid playing without his shoes? And the coach said, well, he can't afford it. So that's why he's playing like this. So anyway, the coach called me and said, the guy was here before. He's going to come tomorrow and he will bring you a gift. And sure enough, the next day, this guy turned up and brought me my first ever pairs of tennis shoes. And I tell you, put them on, went on court, and I was playing the second best junior player in the country. It was only in the first few games I realized that playing with tennis with the shoes was definitely not for me because I couldn't run, I couldn't move, my feet was aching, and like I said, it felt like somebody put super glue under my feet because running has always been, my strength and stuff like that. So I have to go to the umpire in the second set and tell him, look, I need to take these shoes off because they're absolutely killing my feet. and and I could still remember to this day, the coach was a national coach, Harold Cisse was umpiring, and the look that he gave me like I'm a kid from some another planet, like you can't play with the shoes, how ungrateful are you? But anyway, I took the shoes off and the match went to three sets, but unfortunately, I lost the match. And you can imagine my dream of playing for Sierra Leone just completely crushed. And then $250 gone, national tracksuit, nothing. And I laced the shoes together, put it over my neck, and I walked 4 miles home to my mom, crying my eyes out. But again, I just want to say for people who are listening to this, one of the things that I learned at a young age that if you want anything enough, life will always challenge you. You must be prepared to work because whatever you're trying to do, there is 100,000 people around the world trying to do the same. And I learned from my coaches and other people that if I want to get to that national team, I need to go train as hard as possible, probably better than any other person. And that's exactly what I continue to do.
But then the problem was, like you said, there's only one tournament a year. You had to wait 1 year. In the US, we have tournaments every weekend. We have 4 big ones that are the same level, but then you can also travel somewhere. You can figure out other opportunities. You had to wait a year. Not the and this is the interesting part is it's not just because you want your UTR up or whatever and all this stuff. You're trying to make money at it as a teenager so your family can eat. But you have to wait a year, not a week, not a day, not a month, a year. I mean, and then you come back, you grind it for a year, and then you come back, and then what happens?
And then I kept losing. kept losing to the same guy, Gabriel. I kept losing to this same guy and over, even till I was 14, 15. And then at that time, obviously, the civil wars escalated everywhere and things like that. And until I was 16 years old, and that was in 1998. And then unfortunately, some tragedy struck, and that's when things completely changed for me. So, so I don't know. Maybe we talk about the war bits because that gives a little bit clue. What happened with the civil war, and that completely changed my life. To keep up with my tennis and to where I am today.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's such a huge portion of it. Again, the hardest part is how can we keep this compact, but because we can talk for hours, but the Civil War really played such a huge part because I think it also that's where it leads into. I remember when you first go in. I mean, I do want to hear about your training and how you're able to survive and still play. You're seeing the Civil War happen in front of your face. But then somehow, I mean, you obviously make it out, and then you play your first ITF, but the Civil War is still going on. So that is a huge portion. I mean, to talk about that part where the war breaks out, you do end up losing a friend. There's times where you can't even train, and you're still having to find a way to try to get. You still have this goal in mind. I mean, how are you able to keep that going?
Yes, this is a question which has been asked to me, television, radios, and everything. I think one of the things I've also learned, which I teach today, even with the athletes that I deal with the kids that when I do my speaking all over the world, is that if you have a why for doing something, you're never going to find why you shouldn't do it. I think once you find that why, the why was to help my mom, was to feed my family, was to get a better education. Because I remember going to my dad, telling him that I want to start playing tennis. And my dad said to me, if you ever touch that rich white man's sport, as he said, I'm going to cut all your fingers. So my dad was actually threatening to cut my fingers, which he wasn't joking. So I wanted to prove to my dad, one, because I'm a very stubborn person, that tennis is not just for rich white people. Plus, I was thinking about my mom, and I love my mom. If there is any reason for me to live and to survive, my first superhero in my life is my mom. So because I have that in mind, and that kept me going. And then on Valentine's Day 1998, when Halimami, my best friend, was shot in front of me with an AK-47 in a very close range, and I remember my mom has run down to the road and there was shooting going on. There was missile flying, all this kind of stuff. And I remember the look on my mom's face. She gave me a look that till this day I never forget. The grief on my mom's face, and then looking at my best friend on the floor lying, taking his last breath. And I remember promising myself that I would do whatever it takes to stay alive, to make my mom proud, to make Alimami proud, so that I know Alimami will be somewhere in heaven looking out for me. So these kind of things, they guide me in a way to keep me going. And then I also see what alcohol can do. I saw drugs, and then child soldier, which 63% of the fighters in the war, which there was over 20,000 fighters. So if 63% of them, were child soldiers, so I'm guessing 11,000 plus, if you can do the math, those were young child, which the youngest rebel in Sierra Leone was 4 years old. So I didn't want any part of that, and I didn't want to go through this. And I saw the brutality, the killing. So tennis was for me like the only place, the only safe place. And I remember my coach said, yes, there are rebels going into houses, they're going into other places, but they never come to the tennis court because tennis court is always empty. And then once we get there, nobody bothers us. So, and this is why the title of my book is called How Tennis Saved My Life, because I was captured, I was tied, I was beaten, and they beat me in front of my mom, the soldiers, they've tied my hands up. I never commit a crime, never swear on anyone, I never hit somebody. I never disrespect anyone, but because I'm a big guy and I was always tall, so sometimes they mistaken me for a rebel because the rebels, they don't have uniform, they just dress anyhow. So when the foreign soldier came, they always think I was a rebel. But even though all these adversities and challenges was going out, when I take a tennis racket, I completely forget about all this problem, no matter what I've been through. So tennis was a way for me out, and I saw that if I can keep up, maybe that 1% chance will happen and I will get away from the situation. And then obviously in 1998, end of 1998, after Alimami passed away, I played another tournament again, round robin, another one tournament. And then, so again, who do I have to play my final match against? The same guy again who I've lost to over and over and over, and Gabriel. But what inspired me at that time is two people. One, Alimami, who passed away, and then my sister, who also was giving me a helping hand at that time, who wanted the best for me, Kumba. And unfortunately, Kumba was killed in 2006. She was murdered. But then I went to the match and saying, forget the $250 because that's what make me nervous all the time. Forget the tracksuit. I don't care about all this thing now. I just want to play and make Alimami proud and my sister. And, also thinking about my mom. So boy, oh boy. And in a three-set brutal final match, and I end up winning. And thankfully, I have the biggest serve ever in my country to this day, which when I was in Senegal, I think I did close to 140 mile an hour. So I knew that once I break Gabriel, till I don't know, I put a video up this morning about me practicing myself here in South Carolina because people say, "Goodness me, you're so big. How can you?" And then I did one. Me and Francis in DC, we were messing around, and then I launched one past Francis, and he looked at me like, "That's just crazy." And so so till this day, myself, because this is something I practice, and then I managed to hold on to myself. You can only imagine what Gabriel was going through, facing myself when I was younger, flexible, faster and things like that. So that helped me until this day. I've managed to travel to 97 countries. It changed my life for good, just making it into the national team. And I was able to play 2 years in the juniors. And, so many things have happened for me. And today I'm traveling the world.
You know what I always try to bring it back to, or what really gets me is, a lot of the things that parents and the kids are struggling with, at least in this country, is they feel so much pressure with their UTR and trying to get into college and everything. And I only laugh about it because it's in comparison to your story that it makes me laugh. Like, but that's why I think, if they can listen to your story, it can bring them some perspective. Like, look, I mean, you were playing when you finally won that championship. You got on the national team. You went to go play your first ITFs. Here you are. Okay, dreams are starting to come true a little bit, but then the Civil War is still going on, right? And you're having to play your matches. You're not thinking about UTR. You're not thinking about college tennis. You can't. You're wondering if your family is surviving the war at home, and because they don't have phones, there's no way for you to communicate. All you hear is you can finally see on TV at this tournament the outside world's perspective on Sierra Leone, and you're like, this is insane. This is a disaster in my hometown. There's still missiles war, and you're having to try to play, not even knowing if your family's still alive. While we have kids that are so stressed because their UTR is 10.1 and not 10.5, right? I mean, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
You finally have your dream starting to come true, and then this is still going on.
Yeah, it was really tough because I remember my first trip was to Ghana, and we go to Ghana and I was playing. I actually won my first match ever. And when I went there, my racket has 4 different strings, because we didn't have full strings. So I was playing with 4 different tension on my racket, because when the string break, we would patch it. We can't take the whole string out. So we pull the one that break, we take half a string and then restring it. So and I was playing I didn't have a proper grip. I have like an old towel that we cut and we wrap around the grip. I remember the first time I saw an English kid was playing and he smashed his racket. I was so shocked. I was looking around, looking at everybody like, did you see what happened? This kid got so mad, he just smashed his own racket. It's like, my racket is like the best thing ever happened to me. I wouldn't even, till this day, you will never see me hit my racket. Never in my history. But then when we went to Ghana and the war was still going on, and I remember when I was playing in Togo on the 5th of January, that's when the attack was coming into the city. So again, we have the 6th of January was the worst attack ever happened in Sierra Leone. So 6th January 1999 was in my second ITF tournament in Togo. I was playing a boy called Umar Shitrit from Israel. And then I'm looking to my coach for help because this kid was just bossing me around seriously. And I'm getting stressed out on court, but I've also know the news at home and that's going through your head. And I'm trying to think about the tennis. And then for whatever reason, every changeover, I keep thinking, I don't know what's happening to my mom, what's happening. And then I finally look over to my coach and he was so emotional. And he said to me, well, everybody in Sierra Leone is dead. So you can only imagine, because my coach has his son, his entire family in the city. And then when we look at the news after that, I could remember seeing the place I grew up, seeing the missiles, the houses on fire, government building, and hundreds of thousand people have managed to squeeze into the national stadium. And I'm trying to look in between, would I spot my mom? Would I see my family? Would I see friends? But it was so difficult, and there is no telephone because my dad, even though an electrician who actually fixed telephone wires and stuff, never had a telephone in the house. And it was probably some of the worst, the darkest days of my life. And not only that, we continue to Nigeria, and within a week, they killed 12,000 people in the capital city, where I'm from. And then when we finished in Ghana, we couldn't go back to Sierra Leone. So we seek refuge for nearly 3 months in Ghana, which was even more painful because we're all getting too anxious about, you don't know what's happening. My other colleague, Sapulum, who is living in America now, and his dad was working for the government, so he could speak to his parents because they have telephone. but my parent didn't. And the coach also got hold of his family. So they both knew that their family was okay. It's just a matter of time when the airport opens so we can go. So I have to be every day being happy for my coach, my friends that their family are okay. But in my side, in the other side, I was very emotional all the time and I got to deal with this. But we did continue the tournament, got some few good results here and there. And, it was really tough. But I learned very quick that in life, you got to control what you can and what you can't. You just got to hope for the best and make sure that you continue to build your resilience so that you're able to deal with everyday challenges.
Well, and within controlling what you can, sometimes you have to create something that wasn't even there in the first place. And with the people that you met when you were out there playing, you met some people that invited you to come back to train. And you knew, like, look, if I have any real chance, like, I do need to get to a better training environment. So you make it back home.
Yeah,
You actually find out, thankfully, like your mom and everything was okay at least. But then you're like,
yeah,
okay, great. But if I'm going to continue this, if I'm really going to get out of here, I got to go. But this
yeah,
wasn't just getting on. All right, you know what? Pack my bags, get on a flight, going to Nadal Tennis Academy. Got a nice little dorm, and
yeah,
here we go.
yeah,
You had to do hundreds of miles of travel through buses and
yeah,
trucks, running out of money, trying to cross the border, hiding in trucks. Not showering for weeks because you had nowhere to go. You weren't staying in people's apartments on the way. Just see if you could just summarize that journey so everyone can understand like how difficult it was for you to not only leave your family again, but then just to survive to even make it there, to find a new place to train, to give you hope. That trip was just wow.
yeah. That trip was crazy. And funny enough, last year when I was doing Motivate Africa, I tried to repeat some of those trips again. And this time I got money, I got everything, and I'm sitting in the cars because I could afford it now. And I'm thinking, how the heck did I even try this in the first place? When I was a teenager, I knew nothing about traveling on my own. So, I got to Guinea and I remember going there and tell the guys, I said, I want to go to Liberia. And the guy said to me, Liberia, you're a Sierra Leone, you want to go to Liberia because that time the conflict was in Liberia and Sierra Leone. And Charles Taylor, who was the leader there, didn't like the fact that Sierra Leoneans coming into his country because he was scared that Sierra Leoneans going to attack him because the war started in his country and then escalated all the way to Sierra Leone. So, and my knowledge of travel was zero. So I had a little bit money, which, few people give me money here and there, which wasn't much. I had less than $100 combined with everything, including all the gadget that I have together. And I got to a place and where in Gegedu, and then I completely run out of money. Completely run, and I wasn't even like a quarter of the journey yet. I just completely run out of money, and I'm thinking to myself, boy, phew, I need to do something here. So there was no like sleeping in a hotel. I actually went to the refugee camp in that town. They rejected me as a refugee because me being me, obviously, I don't want to tell lie to people. So I took my passport to the director at the refugee camp. And I said, look, I'm really struggling. I have no money. This is my situation. I have played tennis for Sierra Leone. This is this. And the lady said, let me stop you there. You got passports, you play tennis for your country. You're not a refugee. So yeah, you just need to get out. So they kicked me out of the refugee camp, which the refugee camp itself looked like the worst prison in the world. And just for me to get a place so maybe I'll guarantee to have a meal a day until I find my way out. But then I came back on the street or sleeping on the street, helping the truck drivers to load things. I'll get maybe 20 cents there, 50 cents. What do you call a quarter here? You do that much work just to get a quarter so you can be able to buy water or something so you don't die in somebody's country. And it took me weeks and weeks, no shower, absolutely nothing. And I started trading. I got a few tennis balls with me, and I trade the tennis balls to the kids so that I can buy some food and just whatever I can get. And I have few strings in my bag. I sold those strings because the kids, people wanted to go fishing, so they thought it was a fishing line. So I was selling whatever I could just so that I could survive. And then it was a third week I met a guy from Liberia who's called Big Marshall, and this guy saw me, sat down, I'm just looking and like I got my hand like this and I'm sitting down thinking, what can I do? Because I need to get out of this place. I'm getting way too long here. And then he asked me what happened. I told him, and then he gave me some money and he said, I haven't got much left, but I live in, in Liberia. This is where I live. Can you, if you get there, just make sure you ask for Big Marshall and I can help you. But I can tell you, between Guinea to get to Liberia, when I got to the border, the guy said, there's no way we can let you go to the security guys. They will arrest you. And if they see you walking around here, you will get shot because they don't like Sierra Leonean people here, even though these are your neighbors. They don't want to see any of you guys here. So they have to, one of the apprentice guy in this truck that took me, they have to hide with me and took me to the back way in the jungle. And then the kid said to me, now you have to go on your own. Those 20 years that I have to walk to cross the border is probably the longest 20 years I've ever walked in my life because this is in the jungle. I sound the way I sound. I look the way I look. I was so dirty and filthy. I look worse than a rebel to start off with. And I'm thinking anybody who see me here, they will just shoot me. But and then I went and then I got to wait for the truck to come over. And then once we get back in the truck, I'm now in Liberia illegally because I got no stamp on my passport. I got my documents, I got legal documents, but I've not got a visa to go into Liberia. And then we go to a place called Banga. This is where Charles Taylor military, the was, they call them SO, the Sons of the Devil. That's the nickname of this military force. The reason why they call them Sons of the Devil, because they will kill your grandma, your kids, pregnant woman, doesn't matter who. Once they give them command, say, kill, even a fly. These guys, they have no fear of killing. They got no empathy, zero empathy for any human being. And then we got there, and then the guys go, there's somebody in this truck that they haven't told us. And 3 hours almost we spend there. But I can tell you, till this day, I feel nervous just thinking about me being in that truck. And these guys are coming with AK-47 trying to find anyone in the truck. I was lying right at the bottom under heavy bags of peanuts with my head down like that. And I smell like God knows what I smell like. But thankfully, we managed to escape that and go to Liberia. But I tell you, by the time I get to Ghana, I was so exhausted. But then, as soon as I get into Ghana, all that thing that happened to me was gone. But if I didn't do that trip and took those risks, I wouldn't be sitting here telling my story today.
And how old were you when you did that trip?
I was 16.
16. I know.
Yeah.
I know people that wouldn't even let their kids at 16 years old drive 30 minutes alone in a car. I understand their fears. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying, look what you were doing at 16. Look what you were willing to do to survive. Look what you were willing to do to just chase a dream for tennis. And it's, what would you say when you think about everything you've gone through to chase your dream, to try to help your family? What would you say to these families that, and the kids? And it's hard. Everyone lives their own life, so it's hard for people to relate. So I'm never going to say like, oh, that's so silly. Like, if they've never been through something, I can understand why they can't relate. But what advice would you give them when they struggle to they feel pressure from UTR, they feel pressure to get into any college, right? It's like you can still go to a college. It might not just be your favorite one. Even if you lose that tournament, there's still another one. You had one per year to play. You played tournaments without shoes. You had a wooden wrap, so many things that it's just kind of hard to put into perspective. And then you see a lot of these families and they can train at almost anywhere they want. They bounce from coach to coach. They have brand new rackets, new strings, new shoes. Which, look, I think it's awesome that we can provide as much as we can for kids these days. Yeah. But what would you say to them when they're really struggling? Like, oh, I hate UTR, the pressure. I feel so much pressure. I get so nervous. But yet, what you've been through, what would you say to them?
Didn't they say in tennis, pressure is a privilege? And I think, is it Billie Jean King or whoever wrote this thing? And for me, I think my advice I will give to everyone is that I'm just going to switch subjects a little bit to come back to your point. That's what people need to understand. Everything in life comes in two, right? If you look at my hand now, I got two thumb, two little pinky fingers. All my fingers, they come with another friend. You look at your brain is divided into two, your nose, you got two, your teeth, you got two sets, and you got back, forward, side to side, you got left and right. So everything comes in two. But we got to the idea in life that we only think everything in one perspective. Winning, 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 winning. But nobody become a great champion without losing, because those losings is what make you the person who you are. And also expectation. If you're dealing with expectation, maybe your parents expect from you, your coaches and things. Expectation is a blessing. If somebody expects you, that's because first of all, they're giving you a praise to show how good you are to start off with. That's what I always said. So deal with it and say, okay, what do I have to focus here? Like I said, when I was going through my own thing, I decided at some point, okay, I just need to focus on playing tennis just to please Alimami and for me to enjoy what I'm doing. So enjoy the process of being nervous, because if you're not nervous, it's not normal. You're not a normal human being. Federer will tell you this. Michael Jordan will tell you this. Even Muhammad Ali, recently I watched a video where he said he's scared more than any other person going into a boxing ring. That's why he talks too much to get his fear out of this sort of thing. So embrace the challenges that comes with it. Look at everything in a two-way. Say, yes, there is win, there is lose, but the blessing about losing is it helps you to work harder. When I lose to Gabriel all those time, let me just tell you, my coach once said to me, he said, Sam, I could hear the wall. There's a 12-foot wall on the end of the tennis court where I used to hit. He said, the wall is crying, the ball is begging to stop. Because all I did was every time I lose a match, I go back to that wall for like 3, 4 hours. I will be there for 4 hours on a Saturday. 4 hours, you wouldn't get me to leave that wall. I will practice until the tennis ball they used to pop, because I don't have many. Sometimes I have one ball. They will pop. I'll go back to my coach and say, please give me one ball. They give me another ball. Say, okay, go fetch me water 3 miles, and then I give you another ball. And so embrace all these challenges. If you lose, understand that life goes like this. But as long as you learn, you fight, you do what you have today. Say, okay, I fight really well today, enjoy it. And tomorrow I'm going to come back and train more, and I will get better. Then you will get rid of a lot of the problem, rather than thinking everything is just, I have to win everything. You put a very interesting post, was it today or yesterday, where you were giving the statistic that Federer was leading, I don't know, 8-7, 40-15 against Novak. I remember that match in Wimbledon, lost that. Rafa at the Australian Open, 5-1 down, came back and won. So you're going to lose some, you're going to win some, but those losing is what make you become a better person. It shows your true character. So I would say to people, embrace whatever you're going through and make sure you remember your why. I love to play tennis. Keep going. Don't quit. Don't give up. Just make sure that you do what you have to do to get better.
I love that. I love that. And look, is there anything you'd like to finish on? I mean, that's a pretty good note right there to finish on.
Yeah, I would say to people again, you know, um, I see that in America, the children, they have everything. In England, it's the same. In Europe and developing. If you were born in America, please stop complaining. Embrace being an American. Love being an American. Yes, you might think politics is bad, this kind of thing, but still, America is way ranked more than any other country in the world. And if you want to be a champion, I always say this is something I talk about. There is 4 categories of athletes. You got competitors, winners, champions, and legends. So you may ask me, well, what's the difference between a competitor, a winner, a champion, and a legend? So you look at a guy who is ranked 100 in the world or 150, they're always there. They're always there. They're competing. They're getting into, maybe they're winning, I don't know, the challenges and stuff like that. 250, they're making it to second round. They got that. They got the guys who are winning the 250s, maybe the 500. They got champions who are winning the 1000. They're getting into semifinals in Grand Slam. You got the legends like Novak, the Federer, the Rafa, the Andy Murray. Learn from these guys. What did they do differently that makes them get to that stage? See just their talent. Talent is one, but not everything. It's the work ethic, the passion, the love, the desire, and the willingness to train and do what they have to do. So if you're in America, you got so many opportunities. Make sure that you improve on your resilience, you improve on what you want to do with your tennis, and make sure you aim to say, okay, I don't want to just be a competitor. I want to be a champion. I want to work really hard, do more push-up, do more sit-up, do more reps, get more on court, and do what you have to do. Obviously, you need to rest, but keep going and keep doing what you do, and appreciate being an American, appreciate waking up every morning and being alive, and then you'll see how your life will start to flourish. So thank you so much, and I hope this message will get to every Americans and people around the world as well.
Well, I'm going to share it as much as I can. And Sam, look, you're an inspiration to everybody that hears your story. You're an inspiration to me. You've already helped me on any day that starts to go bad. I'm like, no, I got to stop. I keep this book. I finished the book, but I keep it next to my desk every day. I want to at least see it every day, even if it's just to read a few words. So thank you for sharing your story and for being this. That you're not just resilient. This is another level of resilient. This is just beyond. You are a hero to many to make it through and be where you are. And I'm going to, I'll share the link to your book in my email, social media, everywhere. I think everybody should get it. At the very least, I think listening to you now, I think they'll get a lot out of it. But the stories really put it in. There's so much in the book we still haven't even covered. So I encourage everybody to get the book, How Tennis Saved My Life. And Sam, thanks again. And I definitely hope to see you again soon.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. And I look forward to seeing you back very soon.
Thanks, Sam.